I think no, I know that for a very long time, I thought truth was this like pillar that is unmovable, and that if it had any change or shift malleability or ability to shift, then it wasn't rooted, therefore it wasn't really true.
Mhm.
And now what I'm understanding is truth is ever changing because it's taking new things into consideration.
In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
These things are such real topics. They happen to real people. And the takeaways, hopefully, are stuff that people can actually practice in real life. I mean, I feel like a lot of people are like you were saying earlier, Keith, I want to live my truth. All right, cool. But like, you still live in the real world with other people. And that's not just something you can go like bashing through. You have to, there's nuance to it. There's navigation. And you know what a lot of people don't do is just pause. Slow down. Sometimes if you slow down, when you're in those moments where you're like, especially I think the one where we're swallowing our what's really going on in order to get along, right? Like we're staying quiet about something in order to like maintain some sort of sense of peace. But in the long term, we're fracturing other things. If you slow down in some of those moments and actually just be like, wait, and then get to where you need to go, you'll get a lot more of the communication that's needed to get to the right place. But then, that's work. Not everybody likes to do that work.
It's
Mhm.
hard. Yeah. But that's what we're here for at More in Common. It's all about
That's
that
right.
work,
But can I
And
these
ask
little
you guys a
pieces.
question?
yeah,
What do
Once
you think about this whole notion like, "Oh, well, I'm just speaking my truth," but their truth is misogynistic, racist, it's whatever. Do you believe that's where we draw a line and go, "Yeah, but not that truth"? Or is it important that they even speak that, though it may cause harm? Because then we see people for where they're at. And it's a little bit like, I think it's Maya Angelou, I could be wrong, that says, when people show you who they are, believe them.
it is my Angelou.
Okay. So I would just be curious what you guys think on that because I know, like, because I'm coming at you guys with some questions myself, if you will indulge me.
Yeah.
Well,
Episode 2 with Jen. Welcome back to More in Common, where she interviews
I
us
know it's a flip.
in a first for the More in Common podcast.
what?
Like you doing the intro, it's a total flip.
Yeah.
No,
you you read our bios now.
That was good.
but I am gonna drop your bio real quick. That wonderful question was delivered by Jen Oliver, who is the founder of Speaking Real Communications, where she works with rising leaders and bold creatives to show their most magnetic voice and presence. Jen trains hundreds of speakers from TEDx stages to boardrooms while championing women's voices behind the scene with Women Speak. She also hosts the Listen for Real podcast, right? I said that right. And is currently
Yeah.
building her next platform with one bold mission to help 1 million voices speak truthfully, courageously, and from a place of deep self-trust, which makes sense for the question that you asked. I have opinions on this, definitely.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this first.
But it also depends on where you're at. I am a full subscriber to the I would rather know that you're a racist, misogynist person than not know.
Mm.
Because if the shit hits the fan, I don't want to find that out then. I don't want to find out when it's like really in a hairy moment. But I also don't know how I get the people speaking their truth, but I think there's still a difference between big T truth and little T truth, right? There are things that are true for you it may be true to you that women shouldn't play sports or whatever, but that's not the big T truth. That's not the truth of the universe, right? It's the same thing that people do kind of with religion, because my religion sees it this way. That's the only way that the world could have ever existed. And sure, that may be true for your worldview. That may be true to you. That is in its most distilled sense your truth, but that doesn't make it true for everybody. That is still an opinion
Yeah.
couched in truth. And I think if we
Mm.
separate that, then we get a lot further.
Mhm.
That as well, especially in conversations when there are, and that's why I said it's about stakes, right? Like I have personal friends that I've built stuff with, spent a lot of time with, and then later on you find out like, ooh, that's not, and I'll tell them like, listen, I thought we were doing something else. I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? The things that you're into basically are not my bag. And where they conflict is values, and values are important. Uh,
Mhm.
I do feel like, heaven forbid the civil rights movement comes back around. It is. Um, I would want to know that you're not, you know what I mean, that you're actually on my team and not on my team, because that is actual life or death at that point. That is actual survival for people. That's all.
Absolutely. What about you, Keith? Big T truth,
Um,
big little T truth. I love that you called it big T, little T.
yeah, I think like drawing it into human connection. I'm with Garen. I And when you think about the current political landscape that's been developing over the last 40, 50, 60 years, where we have started to divert away from honest conversation, where we don't talk about politics and religion at the dinner table, just using that as an example. We shroud our own experience in this desire to present to the world what we think is acceptable, while internally we have this, whatever it is, let's say it's racist, misogynist, or whatever the case may be. I think I would rather know where you stand, because in that, going back to last week around honesty, we can have an honest relationship, whether it's a severing of that relationship.
Mm.
We know why. It's not rude. Like it's not ambiguous. It's not uncertain. And at the same time, because I have family members where it's like, where do you stand? Like and then it's little micro comments about this or that, but you really don't know if that's just an innocent comment that's rooted in past experience of social normalization, or if it's something that's truly honest to them. And it creates we talk that shroud in between, and it dramatically affects our ability to just have a relationship that can be productive, that can move to a common sense, that can shift away from a hateful stereotype to an opening of acceptance. Like I would rather be on the the battlefield with you, working towards that, if you're having an intellectually open, honest conversation. Like there is a limit there, but I also would like to know that that limit exists, so we can decide we're not investing time in each other, because we do have to sort. We have too many people. We have too many responsibilities. We have family, we have friends, we have work colleagues, we have
Dunbar
all
number
of these
reference again?
things. Like I can't I can't invest my energy and time in an area there right now. Like you are where you are, I'm gonna let you be where you are, and I'm just going to stay over here, versus thinking or questioning, which is now we're impacting trust. I question whether or not you think like a hateful rhetoric. I don't know. That's not a good place to be in, right? And I'll finish on this with an example. Is I have a friend, or an acquaintance now, who used to be a friend, and I invested a lot of time in this friendship while he was going through a divorce and all this other stuff. And he ended up having colon cancer. And so there were a few of us. We ended up taking him to Vegas. It was this whole thing. And over time, we all start to question whether or not he actually had colon cancer. And I won't get into the whole reasons why, because it's just going to take up the entire episode. But that questioning and uncertainty, like that's not, I don't want relationships that have that. So I
Mm.
want to know with like, let's be clear. As Brene Brown says, clear is kind. And you alluded to that last week, right? Like, how can we make sure that even if it is just your truth, hey, at least we know.
Yeah.
So that's my
Yeah.
take on it.
That's good.
How about you? What is the answer to your own question for yourself? Do we draw a line, or do we let the line not exist, and then we know where our lines are so we can navigate them based on what is out there?
That the ladders. As you're asking that, I'm realizing it is not my responsibility to draw a line. It's my responsibility to be very clear on what my values are and what my truth is, and also be open to the fact that my truth can be ever changing. I think no, I know that for a very long time, I thought truth was this like pillar that is unmovable,
Mhm.
and that if it had any change or shift malleability or ability to shift, then it wasn't rooted, therefore it wasn't really true.
Mhm.
And now what I'm understanding is truth is ever changing because it's taking new things into consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, right down to if you went murder and killing, okay? That's a pretty strong area one could stand and go yes or no on. And yet, if you really sat with it and got quiet and thought about the decision to take a life in whatever form that is, there's so much more to the equation. And I realize even as I'm saying this, like, God, edit this out because it makes no sense.
It makes perfect sense.
You know,
I
it
mean,
just
No,
sounds so like,
people forget
"Oh,
that
whatever is if
St.
it's good
Thomas
for
Aquinas.
you to kill," you know, I mean, I feel like I'm sounding like I'm making it so light and
But, like, even in
like
religion, there is just war theory. There is, right? There are, even though the commandments "Thou shalt not kill," there's, like,
yeah,
there's asterisks even in the core tenets of religion.
yeah,
So
fair
there's
point.
always, but that's kinda the thing that you were saying earlier about dogma, right? The dogma of a consistent truth makes us feel comfortable, but it isn't the actual lived experience of humanity and reality, and if you look closely enough at any of those things, there's always nuances. There's always exceptions. This is the rule except for when it's like this. And sometimes or oftentimes the people who are exploiting the power of that positioning are the ones making the exception.
But as you just said that, you know what feels right to me, however, is the through line between, let's say, all faith practices, all sacred texts. There are a few truths that are the through line between all of them that are consistent. That strikes me as a truth that is reliable and without change.
Yeah.
there's that, and it's so you don't feel like, and I don't know if you feel this way. I'm inferring it based on your reaction on your use of murder, right? Like we all can create hypothetical scenarios where we could justify taking someone's life,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
The easiest one is if someone was threatening my kid, right? And it's like, well, justified. Now, I think the line on that collectively is too broad of an exception. Like I think for me though, and I've been challenged with this recently in some conversations, like I realize like my area, I want it to be really, really narrow and super exceptional. But to your point, like it's not binary, no matter what way you play it out. So I
Yeah.
think it's a great example. I
Yeah.
think it's a great example.
And so, Jen, you said that you were gonna put Keith through the ringer on this episode, so let's make sure that we.
He keeps doing it. Keith.
Do you believe, Gerren, that somehow it is only Keith that's gonna hear this question? I'm just throwing that out there. Just think about it. Yeah.
You know what he's relying on right now, Jen, is that you're going to ask me some questions.
Yeah.
And we have about 15 minutes left before the
Yeah.
episode. And I talk a lot. And he's
chats.
just he's just going to be like, oh, look at that. No more time. Keith did it.
Yep. Nice job. Nice. Okay, then here's the deal. So I have a line of questions around truth to create connection that I'm using this season on my podcast. I decided to go with a season of truth telling. And so I ask each guest to come on and tell about a time where they finally spoke their truth. Some pivotal moment, could be personal, could be professional, whatever. But it was one of those times where you had to count the costs, and maybe you were risking something, and it could have been very easy to divert, to stay silent, to sugarcoat, you name it. And so I'm wondering, Keith and Gerren, something might pop in your mind, but
I
Keith,
mean, I got
is there a time that's coming to mind? Either of you, really.
So there is a broad answer to this question that if we have time, I'd be really open to
He's already
sharing
doing it. No.
specifically. Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
I don't want to take up this time so Gerren can share a story, but I think that element of personal health and impact to how truth plays out, not just in the acute moments, but in the patterns and when we don't tell the truth, how that can affect us. And I have a thing on that, but the answer to your question is yes, and it actually happened not that long ago, just in the last couple of weeks.
Mm.
Um, the context is a really close friend of mine, and we had a mutual friend a long time ago where we were all part of the same group, and for a variety of reasons, there was a fraying. And at certain points in that period of time, the fraying was really, really intense. And over the past few years, this other party, this other friend of ours, and I have reestablished a relationship in a very meaningful way. And my close friend, I feel like we're close. There's a codependency at times in that friendship that I take on my my perception of their emotional response based on historical context. We've been friends for a really long time. So there's just a journey on that, right? And fast forward to this point that my closest friend was interested in working at LQ, right? There are some variables that would not make that reasonable for both parties, but particularly for them. This third party doesn't have those variables and was interested in exploring a position. And the position that we would look to hire for would fit their qualifications so perfectly. And it was all the pieces line up. And so we started talking about it a couple months ago, actually. And I could not tell my close friend that we were having that conversation. And I talked to my therapist about it. I talked to my wife about it. The struggle, like, how am I going to tell them that this is likely going to happen? And I sat with it for months, just sitting going, I don't know. I literally did not know how I was going to communicate this. And so it was just a couple of weeks ago, and we were on a call, and like I told him, I was like, "Look, I've got this thing I want to tell you. I'm probably overanalyzing this way more because I'm internalizing a perception of your emotional response based on this circumstance. And I just want to give you the heads up that I don't know if you're going to be happy with this, but I need to tell you." And the reason I came to that conclusion was because if it ultimately played out and I didn't tell them ahead of time, that would be a way worse situation for our relationship and our connection. And so I shared it. And boy, it couldn't have been better. Like it was like I learned more context that I didn't have.
Mm.
I learned more about this person's perception and the dynamics of their relationship, and like, and it was just this. Yes, you needed to tell me this. Like we had that conversation because if I found out later, that would have been way worse. And
Yeah.
that would have been because I internalized the perception of the emotional response. And the
Yeah.
easiest thing would have been to just let that play out. But that would have actually been the hardest thing because then I would have had to clean it up after.
Totally.
And so, yeah, like when we talk about everything we've discussed in these two episodes, like I haven't stopped thinking about that situation relative to this conversation because it is, it was the, I'll summarize to say the resistance in telling it
Hmm.
was all me.
Yeah.
And I was trying to protect myself from
Yep.
a potential uncomfortable conversation.
That's right.
And, and I then told this narrative of I'm protecting their emotional experience.
Totally.
in, and I take away in that moment their agency to have the emotional experience that they need to have. I'm taking control of that, and that's not fair to them.
Yeah,
So,
it's exactly like the example I gave with my ex-husband, right? And and it was all about me feeling uncomfortable. And so would you say you and this friend have a deeper connection now as a result of this difficult conversation
so
and
what
honest exchange?
I would say every time we talk, that's just a natural outcome. I would say our connection was protected now, whereas it could have been
Ooh.
worse if I didn't. Yeah.
Oh my God, what a beautiful notion that it was protected. That's really important. Okay, one other question. How did it feel? Because everybody it's different. That dis-ease in your body, let's say, how did it feel during that time frame where you were grappling with it? You're talking to your therapist, you're talking to your wife, and it's just eating at you. I always think it's very important to bring people back to also our bodies because our bodies are such a clear indicator of instinct and wisdom, but we stay, at least I do, stay in our head and we overanalyze. How does that manifest for you in your body?
Yeah, for me, it's a very visceral, like chest guttural sadness. Like it is a sadness of uncertainty, which then leads to an anxiety due to that uncertainty and just creates a say. And then what it does is when we talk, it shrouds the conversation because I'm holding this thing
Yeah.
that they don't know about.
No.
But for me, it's like it's a tension that if it's like when your husband sat down on the tub and said, "I'm trying, but I
Mhm.
can't get back to you what I'm trying to give,
Yeah.
and I don't know what that is." And eventually that builds up.
Mhm.
And so that's the protection. We don't that didn't build up to a point of destruction. And
Yeah.
so yeah.
A and sometimes it leads to, in my case, with my husband and I, he and I are to this day best friends. He is COO of my company. He is I talk to him almost every day. We both go out on our anniversary to celebrate our unconventional, um, loving release of our marriage and now best friendship and have champagne and lobster every year on our anniversary. And we've been, divorced, I don't know, 3, 4 years. Um, and we are better than we've ever been and closer than we've ever been and more intimate from a connection standpoint than ever because of that, and sometimes that's made possible. I don't say that it's always the case in relationships when we are honest and give someone the benefit of our truth, but sometimes it can lead to even better things. I couldn't
Yep.
have guessed that.
Yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for asking. Now,
Yeah.
I do we're gonna go long this week, team, if you already noticed in the,
Okay.
ticker, this is not a
I told you you were
30-minute
gonna
episode
filibuster that
because
though.
now now we gotta hear from Garen.
Think of a time where you finally spoke your truth, and it can be professional setting, it could be something deeply personal, relational. But it was a situation where something changed fundamentally for you, and you made the decision to say what the real truth was when another defense mechanism might have been really easy, like silence, sugarcoating. I know we all have our mechanisms, dancing around the subject, but you decided, "Nope, I'm gonna say what's true here."
I've got a
And what
professional.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So this is earlier on in my I did a lot of live television earlier on in my TV career. I was coming up in the MTV world, and we happened to have this particular coordinator who liked to yell at everybody, like in our meetings. Like he was barky, yelly, aggressive about it. And this went on for like maybe 2 weeks, and I was like, you know what, I gotta do it anymore. So I was like, can we talk after the meeting? And this was happened to be one particular meeting where he said something to me in particular that I was not very fond of. And I told him after the meeting, I was like, "Listen, all this work stuff aside, if you talk to me like that again, we're gonna fight in the parking lot. There's only so much that I'm gonna be able to take from this." And was that risky career-wise? Absolutely. Um, was that something that I normally would have just been like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, no, sure, it's fine." Sure, and I was until I wasn't. Uh, would I do it again? Abso-freaking-lutely, because it changed for everybody. I think that I was the one that told him, like, "You're out of fucking line, my guy." You know what I mean? You need to reel it back, and then he had to change, obviously, in how he interacted with the whole group, because I think he felt like, "Oh, well, if it's that serious, then he can't be the only one that's feeling that way."
Yeah. How
So huh?
Yeah, what was the outcome of this? This is fantastic in so many
I
ways.
mean, well, the thing about it is, it's like those kinds of shows. Like he couldn't really fire me at that point because we're like so close to the actual live show, and you're not really replacing somebody on that. Like we all have roles. Um, I never did work with that particular guy again, but not for anything bad, is because I moved up and I took what his role was on other shows moving on forward. Um, but I think the overall outcome was that we were all people were like, "What happened there?" And I was like, "Well, listen, I told him the truth. Like, you can't be talking to people like that." And I got a lot of like, pats on the back from the coworkers, like thank yous, like that. But overall, it was just like I think we knew where each other stood at that point.
Yeah. Okay, but I can't help
Yes.
but wonder if that also was a crucible moment for that guy that may have changed the trajectory of his career for the better because someone told him the truth, like, "Dude, you cannot work with people like this." And it made I would be so curious,
I know.
if he took it I and didn't just tone it down in that situation, but it maybe changed him.
It certainly might
Wonder.
have, because I definitely had heard it from other people too. That were like, "Yo, you know, people cry in the car after work is not it's work. It's not appropriate.
Yeah,
It's not an appropriate thing to be
yeah,
happening." And so in that sense, I think I was aware that it wasn't just about me, but I had definitely taken specific offense to whatever happened that day. I don't even remember exactly what he said, but it was a combination of
yeah,
like attitude and tone where I was like, you're not gonna talk to people like that. Not what I'm here."
yeah. Okay, I gotta ask you because again, remember I was asking Keith about the physicality of it and the visceral reaction. I think it is fascinating that you said, "We're actually gonna go out and fight. Like, I will take you outside, and this is what's gonna go down." And I believe you when you say that. So, what goes on in your body, and is it a I just think that's such an interesting and an important response, and that there's also a physicality to even fighting in this. Like, let's resolve this, and we're gonna go resolve it in this way because I need to be clear here that this is intolerable. So, can you just say more about what goes on in your body?
Yeah, I mean,
In
I definitely had that, like, that tightness. I mean, because I did not know if he could have fired me technically, like, he had the power to. Uh, so it was definitely like that knot in this, but it was also like the knot in your stomach, the, like, tension, anxiety, and also if he said, "Alright, let's go chunk him," well, then we were gonna go do that too.
Yeah,
So there was very much that awareness of, like, I don't know how this is gonna be received or where this is gonna go afterwards, which creates its own nervousness. But I was also resolved at that point. You know what I mean? I was also like, I genuinely don't care if he does fire me because I'm not going to go through another one of these meetings where he just yells at people all the time like that.
that's right.
That's not what we're doing today.
Yeah,
And I do remember afterwards feeling like, cool, cool, all right, and when we all walked away. You know what I mean? So but I think that I've also had a lot of experience around that in my own world and my own things that I've come across in personal relationships about being daring enough to speak up because it has served me well about
yes.
being the one guy that goes, well, what if we did like this? Or I don't see it the same way you guys see it. And learning how to couch telling your truth in ways so that people can receive it without feeling like they're being attacked or offended.
Yeah,
That was not that was one of those moments where the nuance was done. All the, like, witty talking Garen was over. There was no more of that in that time. It was just gonna be
yeah. Oh, thank you both for sharing that because what both of your examples underscore for me, and I hope everyone listening, is this notion that when we have a hard conversation and speak truth and seek to create connection, we offer invitation and permission for others to do the same, be it that person or in the case of everybody else on set with that work environment, by you having the guts to have that conversation, you offered permission and invitation for others to think about the power of their determination around saying something true when it's hard, when it's risky, etcetera. And then I think of Keith's example of the people around him, whether it's the friend group, whether it's his wife, whether it's other people who were in this orbit of the hard conversation Keith had to go into, and suddenly we all are emboldened and we're emboldened when we see someone else say what's true, and
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing that we can offer that permission and that invitation.
And I think it's great that
Um,
you're on this mission as well too because it was like little fires, right? You hope to light that little fire in somebody so that they can light the little fire in somebody else, and then, light let's strike
can I
candles.
can I ask you one closing question as we wrap here? Because I think in these last 2 weeks, we can recognize the complexities. Like, if there was ever a conversation, and we pack a lot of density into a lot of conversations around the complexities of human connection, I think this conversation has exemplified it in a way that is just hard to capture. And I'm curious to the extent that you would share to our audience, anybody listening at some point, what is something that you can leave people with to help them more easily navigate this complexity, um, because it is so hard.
Drop into the body, and let me say what I mean by that. We have all kinds of voices in our head, all kinds of chatter, all kinds of what is seemingly truths and competing truths, right? But I believe the mind The head is the voice of ego and personality and culture and our mother and context, social media. There's so much there. And I know when I work with people, this is one of the key parts of what I teach is what if you could drop into your body, which is the source of your truest voice, your deeper wisdom, your inner knowing. Your body is the voice of your spirit and soul. The mind's the voice of all those other things. So I would say that anyone who can slow down long enough, get quiet enough to drop into their body, it knows the body is the author of truth and knows things. And if you go just purely to science, forgive me, I'm gonna mess up these numbers, but the ratio is the same. Our mind takes in like 70 bits of information per second. Our nervous system in
40,
our body takes in like 17 million, right? Or it's some
11.
crazy
Yeah.
ass ratio like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Our prefrontal cortex and our logical processing takes about 40 pieces of information per second. And the rest of our brain is 11 million pieces of
Yeah,
information
the rest of our
per
brain
second.
or the rest of our body and our nervous system.
Like our nervous system, every piece that is
Yeah.
functioned is, so it flows through. We have neurons in our stomach. We have
Right.
our neurotransmitters, not neurons, but neurotransmitters in our stomach. Like our whole body interacts with our brain far more automatically than our logical thought process function.
Right. So
Yeah.
if it was sheer value of this is an information gathering piece that has this number, and the rest of this is an data gathering piece that has this number, what has more truth that is a source of wisdom that we can drop into, connect with, and then speak from that place? So that would be
Mm,
my answer to your question is
mm,
how can we slow down and get into our body physically, check in with ourselves physically as opposed to measuring everything with the competing voices up here.
Yeah.
mm.
I mean, it goes to
I
underscore like what you're
I love
talking
it.
about isn't just like being real for being nice or being moral. It's an actual skill. It's an actual skill that you can develop that helps you navigate these personal connections, no matter whether it's personal or professional or however it manifests for you, right? Like the truth is that encompassing. It's that all encompassing for all of us.
Yeah,
Mm.
absolutely.
Well, thank you,
Absolutely.
Jen, for joining us these couple of weeks and putting us a little through the honesty ringer a little bit there too.
Anytime. Oh, I love the conversation, you guys. I loved it. It's been a pleasure to be with y'all.
Definitely, we should always do this again. I'd be happy to have you back. In the meantime, this is the More in Common podcast. We're gonna leave you with these truths. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson, and that's Jen Oliver. We'll see you next week.
There